Is it ready? Okay. Okay, we are continuing our series of interviews with Ask an Archer with a very dear friend of mine, Gökmen Altinkulp, from originally from Turkey, but currently in Ireland. And we have somewhat of a history. We met through a mutual friend, Neil Payne, who helped start the BHAAA in the UK, and who I started my kind of horse archery career with back in, I can't remember now, 2008 or something like that. And then I think we met at a couple of competitions in Biggar, I think it was. And then since then, we kind of made a good friendship and have been in contact ever since. So Gökmen, thank you very much for taking your time out to sit with me today.
I thank you. I thank you. So our friendship, as you say, is very old, goes back very old times. So thank you very much.
No problem. No problem.
It's an honor to know you.
Yes, and me as well. My honor is mine. So Gökmen, I guess you are known for historical archery research, checking manuscripts possibly, and experimenting with archery history, I guess, because you like would you say your interest is more in testing what the manuscripts say, and if it is true, for example, that can we really pull such heavy bows as they did, or can we replicate particular arrows that they shot? Would that be kind of a correct description?
Yeah. You might be able to say that. So a bit of experimental archaeology. So there's still so many questions that we don't know the answer to.
Of course, that's right.
And the manuscripts are very, you might not know which way it was meant. They say do it this way, but not too much and not too late, just the right way. So how do you know what's the right way? So these things I try to test. My passion is Turkish archery, horse archery, especially, and I got into reenactment as well. So my ultimate goal, and it changes. So my ultimate goal is basically to reenact, research, and practice a 16th century Ottoman Sipahi, beginning of 16th century. So the time frame I'm looking at specifically is Yavuz Sultan Selim. So, and beyond that, Kanuni Sultan Süleyman, so the Süleyman the Magnificent. So around that first half 16th century, I try to gather all information. I look at all manuscripts, see if it was feasible, how they did it, why they did it. And I became also very selfish. So I want to know what they felt. I want to know how they did it, why they did it, and these things basically, rather than just, for example, winning competitions or points in competitions.
Sure.
So I want to know what my ancestors did, why they did it, what they felt,
right,
and basically understand more about this, because it's fascinating, basically.
Absolutely, yeah, it definitely is a fascinating time. That particular period, do you consider it to be, the peak of what a Sipahi would have been like, the development of a warrior, for example?
In terms of archery, it was already past the peak. So if you remember, Yavuz Sultan Selim, he conquered the Middle East basically against the Mamluks, very strong Mamluks, against the Iranians, for example. And the way they did it was with cannons. So firepower was already there. But it was very interesting. They used Central Asian tactics and incorporated cannons, for example. So the way they engage the enemy and then bring them into the center in front of the cannons and conceal the cannons, and then all of a sudden they go around and the cannons go fire. Those things happen in both battles. So we can say it's past the peak, but still, in terms of logistics, weapons technology, archery, it's still kind of you know, kind of very peak. So, and after that, you know, the modernization became very quickly, and archery kind of lost its, and even swords, if you want, lost kind of its importance. So the Janissary corps increased in size, in numbers, and then, you know, firepower became more and more important.
Prevalent,
up until the 1826, basically, when you know, the Ottoman army as we know it as such was dissolved and a new army was created. Yes.
Yeah, that was I guess that was the break in the line, because up until that time we had a lot, or you had, I guess, I say we Islamically, but you as Turks had you know, a connected line and lineage of, you know, of I guess warfare and warriors and knowledge and things like that. But when that sever was made, then unfortunately I think this is where we lost a lot of our heritage and our information. So now we're trying to just piece the puzzle together, I guess, with whatever we have left.
Exactly. So 1826, you know the movie Last Samurai?
Yes.
Where the samurai guys fight against the new army. So something similar happened in Turkey as well, or in the Ottoman Empire. So the famous Janissaries were disbanded. There's many reasons why, whatever. But in fact, it was the old army. Like, it was a battle between two systems. The old system was, you have few really highly trained people, experts, you know, like let's say Green Berets, but you don't have many of them because it takes a lot of investment and time to build them up. It's similar to the English longbow archers, basically. So they train for 20 years, and you know, then you have them. But and the new system is you have mass armies. You give them, you know, a musket or firepower, and then train them to a very basic level. And in the end, you know, the latter won, basically. So
I think just from pure volume of people that they had, you know, rather than skill.
Exactly. And there's so many battles. There's not just one battle. Like, there's battles leading up to the battle, after battles, etc. So you lose a lot of people. So somebody who spent like 20 years on training, and you lose, like, you know, a random bullet or arrow goes in him, and it's really hard to replace him.
It's a big loss.
So you to invest another 20 years into that guy, into somebody to create. I want to show you a book, actually. So this guy, it's a book, Unter dem Halbmond. This guy, it's Helmut Graf von Moltke, and it's in German, but I think there's an English version as well. After that, how it's called, auspicious event or something, Vakai Hayriye in Turkish, where we, you know, killed all the Janissaries. The army was modernized, and we invited a lot of foreign people, officers from Germany, from France, and this is one of those guys. Okay, and basically most of what was Ottoman, it was, you know, put to the bin. So swords, sabers, even saddles, the horse tack, even. Basically everything was replaced with European style stuff, which could be mass produced. So that's where we lost most of the Ottoman stuff.
I see. Right.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Just if somebody wants to read this, it's quite interesting what goes on. Those books I love because they're a bit like a time machine.
So this is kind of one of the sources of where European influence came in and kind of replaced, you know, thousands of years of knowledge, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, which was a shame. But anyway, you know, we are fortunate to have people like yourselves who are at least trying to research and bring back the correct information from the grave and do the reenactment. It's very difficult, I know, but it's a very appreciated job. But we can see you have some great stuff in the background there. I'm just looking at the kalkan and the helmet and the chainmail. This is the one that you made, is that correct?
Exactly, I made it in the early days.
I just wanted to just share a video here. You might remember this. You came to visit us in the UK. Let me just get my screen up. And you brought it there. I think, I'm just trying to remember. This was maybe back in 2010 or something. And 1 second. If it loads. I hope it will load. And yes, this was the first time that we invited you over, I think. And you came for like a weekend course. It was in Woking. Here we go. And this is the same chainmail. What do they call chainmail in Turkish? Is there a name for it?
Yeah, there's different types, basically. Cevşen or Çarayna. But it's not a good one, by the way. So nowadays people make far better ones. It was just, you know, the first tests.
Yeah, sure.
It's butted. So usually you have to drive a pin through it and stuff.
Right.
But it's not a good one, but I can explain.
Yeah, so, but I remember you telling me it took like a year to make or something like that.
Yeah, it still took some time because I researched at the same time, tried to understand. You know, it was good in that respect. The weight is the same as a normal one, as a proper one. So I could still put it on and ride a horse and see what does change in my horse riding. Can I ride? Do I have to lean back further if I want to stop, if I want to turn, etc. So it still gave me a feeling of how were those people back then with the chainmail on the horse.
Sure.
So
sure.
Maybe the only benefit was that, basically. Otherwise, there is no protection. Like somebody could shoot an arrow right through.
Sure, but
hopefully, like I wrote an article about it as well on my personal blog, and you know, I do think a lot of people got inspired by it, and made far better chainmails after it. So
sure, yeah. I mean, like with anything, there's always an evolution of improvement. But the fact that you know, tried to make one and you know, did it by yourself was quite impressive. And the helmet, where did you get the helmet from?
The helmet is from Sivas. It may not be historically very accurate, but still also it was something to start with.
Yeah, and you know, we see you had the whole uniform. Now, colors are very important, I think, in the historical aspect, because like you had a green undershirt, yellow boots, etc., etc. These represent certain things, right?
Not necessarily. It's just
red trousers. I heard there were different colors for the trousers, at least. Maybe red or.
I think it was just aesthetics. So in some source it says the Turks go to battle like to a wedding. So they're very colorful. They have very nice things, embroidery, etc.
Yeah.
It was like that basically at that time.
Yeah.
So there was no proper uniform, if you want, for most people.
Right.
Unlike in the modern series today in Turkey, all people look black, kind of. But there's also another source saying that the Turks never wore black, basically. So black was considered something bad, and only if somebody dies, the Ottomans were wearing black.
Yeah, right. And obviously the arrows that you have in this clip, these are the ones that you made, I think.
Yeah, I made them. Yeah, I had better ones here that I can show you later.
Great. Okay.
So the thing with reenactment is, like, you make something, and the moment you make it, you see already the mistakes and say, okay, next time I'll make it better. So it's basically iterations every time. So
yes,
it's with everything, basically. All the things you see here.
Yeah.
I'm not happy anymore. Like, I have plans to make better ones the next time.
Yeah. So did you make the shield as well?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That came from Poland, actually.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I there's, for some reason, Poland, there seems to be, it's like there's an inheritance of Turkish, you know, artifacts in Poland. and people who can make artifacts very very well there. What is it about Poland that why is it?
Poland was influenced by the Turks, Ottomans, and Tatars. They were basically like European fighters, if you want, or European knights, and the system was European. But maybe around in the 1600s, in the 16th century, they got very much influenced and adopted the Eastern European system, and developed their own hybrid system as well. They took good things from Europe and good things from Asia, basically. And then we, the Ottomans, forgot our stuff, and now we're learning back from them.
Right.
So I have lots of really good Polish friends from whom I learn a lot still. So sabers, they're far ahead of us. Archery, they're really good, horse archery,
excellent,
horse stuff, and even breeds. Like they have Polish Arab breeds. They're lovely. Like they have really good horse breeds as well, and we kind of lost most of it.
Yeah. Well, at least it's been retained somewhat, in, whether it's in the hand of Muslims or non-Muslims. I think it's important that, we kind of learn from wherever the knowledge is. We can't just be too single-minded and say, because they're not Turks or they're not Muslims or whatever, that we can't learn that knowledge from them. I think wherever the knowledge is, it's important that we kind of humble ourselves and learn that information again.
Exactly.
Okay, so you kind of had a short, I guess, schedule or topics, a list of topics that you wanted to cover. I thought we'll get into that now, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find the list. Do you have the list with you?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I see it here. So
okay, great. So
again, the top thing was to reenact and research and practice early 16th century Sipahi. Sipahi is like, for people who don't know, it's like the Turkish knight, if you want, equivalent to the European knight. There is, in my mind, 4 pillars to that. Firstly, war archery, so military Ottoman archery. And part of that is heavy draw weights, hornbow equipment, war arrows and stuff. We can talk about that. Then the horse. So what were they riding, basically, and the riding style, etc. We can talk about that. Other weapons. So I don't see it just as a horse archer. There was never really just a pure horse archer. They always had different weapons. So I'm trying to learn other things as well, like sword, saber, kulich, etc. And as a third pillar, the warrior culture, which interests me a lot as well. So I'm trying to advance there as well. So those 4 pillars. We can start with the war archery one,
sure,
if you want.
Yeah, let's start with that. Yeah.
First of all, so I try to reenact, but it's not like reenactment. So if typical reenactment, you see there's people, they shouldn't, they dress up very well, and then the bows that they're using, they're like 30 pounds or something. So I try to reenact everything as it was back then. And like also in terms of other things, like my benchmark, or the question I'm asking myself always is, okay, imagine you had a time machine, okay, and you bring somebody from that time, 16th century, forward into our time,
right?
And then you show them our stuff, what we're doing, like the competitions, our horse archery, our equipment and stuff. Would that person go and say, "Hey, wow, you're doing a great job here. That's great what you do"? Or would that person go and say, "What the fuck are you doing here?" So that's kind of the benchmark I think we should have.
Yeah, it's a good comparison. Yeah,
just to remind ourselves, like,
sure.
Sometimes I see in competitions things, and so I mean that side interests me more. How has it been exactly?
Yeah.
And I'm training and researching for that. So heavy draw weights is one thing. They had very heavy draw weights.
Definitely.
And I'm at the lower end, basically. So I managed to use a bow, 80, 90, 100 pounds as my everyday bow.
Wow.
So it's not my top. I could pull like 100 up to 140, but as an everyday bow, which I can, you know, use on horseback even every day, the whole day in a competition or something. So 80, 90, maybe, 100 pounds as well, but typically 90 pounds. And it's kind of a bit at the lower end already, but still it's valid, I would say.
Sure.
How do you train? So, you know, I trained for years, basically. My first Kepaze training was in 2002, 2003. So I do this for a long time. And I have some, you know, expertise in this as well, concerning how to train for it. Basically, and there's a clue in a book, in an old text, and it says, you know, meet with your friends, and then pull the bows, and then give the bow to the next person. That's very important. You need to buy a lot of bows, basically. That's how I did it. So ideally, you have like 50 pounds, 60 pounds, 70 pounds, 80 pounds, 90 pounds, 110 pounds. You know, you go by 10, maybe 15 pounds increments.
Right.
If it's too much, you will injure yourself. If it's too little, then it's not much of difference. So it's a bit like gym training. So bench press, it's a bit similar. So you can do, for example, pyramid training as well. So you do lots of repetitions with 50 pounds, then you go higher, less repetitions, you go higher and higher. You end up at, I don't know, 120 pounds, which you pull maybe 5 times, and then you go back lower again. So pyramid training works really well, I can say that. The other thing is muscles. You need to understand the muscles.
Sure.
Okay. So once you train with those heavy weights, well, basically with any weight training, you basically damage the tissue. Okay. And then in 2 days, the body repairs the tissue and it becomes stronger than before. But it takes time. So like what I recommend is train 1 day and then pause 1 day at least, and then train again the second day. So 1 day training, 1 day maybe nothing.
Rest,
like do other things like horse riding, whatever, or light target shooting with light bow maybe. And then you should have those heavy days maybe every 3rd day or every 2nd day.
Right.
So per week, maybe 3 times a week with really heavy weights. I tried everything, basically. You can ask me also afterwards, anybody.
Excellent.
I did like training camps where I trained heavy, like 3 times on Friday, on Saturday, on Sunday, so lots. And I discovered it doesn't improve things, my power. So it's not good. So you need to leave the muscles time to regenerate.
Right.
That's very important. The pause is at least important as the training itself. You can complement it by weight training if you want. So I do a little bit of kettlebells, not too much. You can do weights in the gym as well, but not too much actually. So bows are the main thing. You can do cable like this. You can do some kettlebells for shoulder. People think it's all like back muscles, but it's a lot of shoulder actually.
Yes.
Shoulder and upper shoulder, upper back muscles. And there is one thing in Iran, Zurkhane.
Yes.
Maybe you've heard, I don't know, it's the ancient gym basically of the Persians. And they do things for war basically. And they have like similar to kettlebells, like they have weights and stuff. There's one thing, they have like a bow, but it's metal. And then they go like this. I don't know if you can see it on the camera.
Right,
First I thought, this looks stupid. But now I understand. It's actually very good for archery muscles. I'm sure there may have been maybe 20 of different exercises, and maybe this one survived.
Right. Yeah.
It's not complete, so probably more exercise. But
this is the Pahlavan or something.
Pahlavan is the warrior itself.
Pahlavan is the warrior. Okay. Yeah, I was speaking to Ali recently, and we were talking about Zurkhane and the training. And they have like these big wooden, I don't know what they call it, like, what do you say, like a mace or something. And they are, they're using it around their back.
Okay, yeah. So basically, this is also with the kettlebell, you can also do it. So put it high and then go like this, circle and stuff. Diet is also important. So high protein, definitely.
Sure.
You need to have enough protein, you know, because the tissue needs to regenerate. There might always be some little things. So lots of protein.
Yes.
And vitamins as well. So vegetables and stuff as well.
Now,
so
you know, at that time, you know, the extra training, they wouldn't have had a gym or weights or things like that. But would they have, for example, have been maybe also good at wrestling, for example, and their body would have developed through those type of exercises?
They did have a gym actually. So like the Turkhane, the Ottomans, the Turks had also weights, and there is some weights as well. Like there's a stone from Seljuk times, and it looks exactly like a kettlebell.
Wow. Okay.
And the Ottoman sultans, even they had weights as well. Like one sultan, every morning he carried a very heavy one from one place to another, etc. So weights was really important. Wrestling was really important. Wrestling was so big in Turkey, or in Asia in general, like the Mongols and others as well.
Definitely.
So that gave you the basis. So just archery may not be enough, but wrestling does everything for you. Just one anecdote from my grandfather. His side was wrestlers, which went generations back. He was all wrestler, normal wrestler, etc. He said he went to his friends to another village, and the wealthier friend, he slaughtered
a ram, a sheep.
What is slaughter?
A sheep.
Sheep, exactly. A sheep. And then a couple of people would eat the sheep the whole weekend, and they would finish the sheep, basically.
Wow.
So they would do camps and that. And he was saying, you know, earlier in his times, you know, for every occasion, they would do a show, a demonstration, or competition for wrestling, like at weddings even, you know, wrestling. And just another anecdote, I was like 17 or something. And I was doing taekwondo, and I was still strong. And he was like 72 or something. And, you know, we joked around and stuff.
Yeah.
And my granddad, the wrestler, he pulled me up like this over his head. And I was in shock. I didn't know what happened. Like, so just, you know, the old guys, the old people, they had this strength and conditioning that we don't know anymore.
Yeah, it's different. We call it old man strength, because it's like a different type of strength. You know, nowadays we have you know, we train with dumbbells, or we might do some different type of kind of martial art training, which can be also good. But you know, this kind of more I guess maybe authentic or traditional type of training that, like you said, our grandfathers' era would have done. You know, it's just different. You know, sometimes you shake their hand, and their hand is like, you know, crushing your hand, things like that.
Exactly. And there's another source about food. They were saying mix honey with olive oil.
Wow.
And eat that just to give you power. So just, Okay. Heavy draw weights. Any questions to that? Otherwise, I'll go ahead.
So at what age would someone be training to be either Janissary or Sipahi? And when do they start really going into heavyweights? Does it depend on each person, or is there a certain age that they're expected to draw a certain weight?
That's a good question. I don't know. Janissaries were taken very as a small boy, like maybe 7 years. But at what stage they're using heavy bows, we don't know. There's no mention of that. But today, I would say be careful. You know, my son is also doing now, but he has like a 13-pound bow or something. So go easy on that.
Yeah. And how heavy were the bows that were used on horseback that we know for sure
That's the $1 million question.
Oh, right.
Like,
we're not sure.
If you're bored, just put the question on Atarn, and then 200 people will discuss, like, and they will go mad about it.
I'll start an argument.
Like,
I'll start an argument on Atarn.
Yeah, everybody has his own point of view.
Sure.
People say lighter on horseback and stuff, but with that, it's also, you need to understand the riding style. So a lot of people who ride European style or Western style need to understand the riding style was different in the East. You were standing more on the stirrups, and then it was basically like standing on the ground. It didn't make much of a difference.
Right.
The shock was absorbed by the legs, and then your upper body is basically straight, and you don't move. Otherwise, in European style, your hip and bum is glued to the saddle, and then the upper body absorbs everything. So in that way, you can't really shoot.
Yeah.
But still, the European style horse archers try to shoot that way. So it's you can't do it first of all. You need to understand that. And once you do it Eastern style, it's easier. So I shot 90 pound easily on horseback. So my standard bow is 80 pound on horseback, and 100 pound is still okay.
Wow. Interesting.
So yeah, I would say typically it's also about the averages. Like if you think about an army of 100,000 at the Mongol time or Ottoman time, what was the average? What's the range? I would say from 85 to maybe 130, 120 was the range. And if you pick a typical one, probably 95, 100, I would say around that for horseback archers. Right. Because then you have a good trajectory, you will pierce armor, you can shoot far.
Sure.
And you can still have control of the bow, I would say.
Yeah.
But again,
I was
it's subjective. Like somebody who trains a lot from childhood, probably that person will also manage a 130 pound bow easily. So.
Sure. I was speaking to Ali yesterday, and he was saying that traditionally, the according to, I guess, the Persian history, between the horse archer and the target is about 75 meters. Now this is quite a long way. Today Olympic archery, they shoot 70 meters, and they have to shoot. Obviously they have a different bow, but the distance is quite far. But what you're saying about a horse archer having at least a bow of maybe 90 pounds, 100 pounds, this would then make sense because you can reach that distance with an effective shot. If you have like a 40, 50 pound bow, you may struggle to shoot that distance. And even if it does reach, what is your arrow really going to do at that distance? It might lose speed, lose power. But with a heavier bow, that would make more sense, that it could actually keep the enemy away and do damage. So,
exactly. I do have one hornbow here, and I can show you that, and we can talk about bows in general.
Yeah.
I don't see myself really, so okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna do this. Yeah.
Okay, now I see myself. So this is a hornbow from Lukas Novotny, and it's the proudest item in my collection actually, and I'm very, very happy about that. And it's pretty much the real thing, if I can say that. So draw weight is about 80, which is a bit at the lower end, but everything is really historically accurate. Even the decoration is based on a museum piece, basically.
Did you request him to do that particular decoration?
Yes, I visited a lot of museums in the world in the search for Ottoman stuff, war booty, basically. Yeah. And I discovered this, have a catalog of this as well. It's basically from a collection in Dresden, Turkish chamber. It's about the thickness here. So Adam Karpovic, and he did groundbreaking stuff, by the way, in terms of archery. So here's a table of the bows that he inspected and the saw thickness, so the limb thickness, and approximate formula on how he determines how much draw weight the bow had. Now it's a formula, but the better thing is to recreate the bows and then see. And he did that as well, by the way. So another good news for me, I'm getting a second horn bow, this time from Ivar Malde, and he's just preparing the bow, like last finishing touches. And with the thickness that's currently there, I think it was around 110 pounds. Okay, and then I asked, okay, and he built it based on a real Ottoman bow, and I asked, okay, how much thickness does the real limb have of the real bow? And he said even higher. And he said the real bow was probably around 130 pounds. So I felt like just humbled, like, okay.
Wow.
So yeah, another thing, and that can be discussed on Ataran in the broad audience. The draw length was lower, so our ancestors were smaller. So those draw weights are calculated at 28 inches.
Right.
But what happens if people, at 27 inches?
Yes.
So maybe the draw weight was also, if you look at the forced draw curve, so maybe if you look at 27 inches, maybe the draw weight was also lower. Another thing to look at was when the Ottomans or anybody went to campaign, they left the bows strong, okay? And that reduced the draw weight as well. So they didn't string and unstring it every day, every night, so they just left it. So that may have reduced them, but still, I would believe 90, 100, 110 would have been typical.
Wow, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I spoke with Ivar as well, and he really makes some beautiful bows. His craftsmanship is really good, and many people, serious people like yourself, and even Adam said, I should speak to him. So in the beginning, he was quite not willing to speak on camera. He's a bit shy, but when we spoke, it was very interesting. He has a number of authentic Turkish arrows, flight arrows, and two old authentic bows as well, which is very, very interesting. So yeah, his work is of a very, very high quality. Excellent. Okay.
Then to horn bows, we can discuss more horn bows. A couple of things I want to say. So horn bows are sturdy, first of all. Okay. So a lot of people think horn bows, they're fragile and they might break and stuff. I broke so many laminate bows.
Yeah.
So unbelievable. Like those guys don't break, basically. Like you can use them for a long time. Especially also, what I try to recreate is a full sipahi. So you have the Kalkan shield, you have your sword, you have other stuff. You have arm bracers, for example. So lots of metal, lots of hard stuff as well. And then one of those, I do sometimes demos and competitions as well. So there was a show at the castle here in Ireland, actually. And I did a show. And with lots of stuff, the bow kind of hit something hard probably, and there was a chip or something, and then it broke. That won't happen with these things. So, just FYI. So sturdy. You see, for example, in some miniatures, with a strong bow, they catch gazelle.
Wow.
So around the neck, they catch gazelle. And stuff. So they're quite.
Is that because?
One thing I want to say.
Is that because of just the materials it's made from, the natural materials and the glue, etc.? It's all bound together and a lot stronger.
Exactly. Typically, what do you make your thumb ring from? It's horn. Why? Because it's so hard. So it's very hard actually. So it's hard to break it. And you need to make a distinction between flight bows and war bows. So I'm more into war bow archery, basically.
Right.
Flight bows, you can discuss, and they might be actually fragile. And there is accounts where flight bows just explode and even kill people.
Wow.
But war bows are a different thing. Like they're designed to be sturdy. They're designed to be on campaign, and campaign doesn't mean just one pitched battle.
No.
It's like a lot of smaller battles that lead to the main battle, and then there may be after battles, etc. So it needs to hold, basically.
Sure. Yeah, it has to be long lasting and withstand.
Exactly.
And what about people talk about, you know, these composite bows, they're very sensitive to heat and things like that, and you have to warm them up and all this type of stuff. Is that also an issue?
That's more flight bows.
Flight
like
bows.
This one.
Okay.
Lucas, also a very dear friend of mine. If you look at him, like he just braces them like a normal laminate.
Right.
I go like, ah, but you know, no problem. I still invest like maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes to warm it up, and warm up doesn't mean with heat. So just like slight, I pull it, and then I string it, and then I pull it with 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, like 3, 4, 5 minutes. It's enough.
Right.
I wouldn't even need to do it really, but still I do it because you know, expensive.
Of course.
But heat might actually destroy things. So once I string, I see if there's any twist, and if there is, I go the opposite way and leave it a bit, and then it's usually fine. And what you can do once it's in perfect shape, you can leave it for a day so that it gets used to that shape even more, and then it takes that shape even more. It's like hair basically. Like when you take what do you call it? Make your hair with
gel.
Warm. No, not gel. The warm.
Oh, the hair dryer.
Hair dryer, exactly. So it's good like that.
Right.
So with you know, it stays like that.
Interesting. Okay. So the next. So that was heavy draw weights, equipment.
And bows.
Yes.
Exactly.
So
arrows. We can go to arrows.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So I had the chance to look at a lot of arrows in front of the museum, in front of the glass, but also a couple behind the glass. So I can show you a good example. So again, like a lot of iterations, a lot of things I did, and then I didn't like them anymore, and then I did new ones. So I arrived at this one at the moment, and I'm sure I'll create better ones the next time. But I can explain. So Ottoman, okay. The tip is Bodkin style. I can go a bit closer here. Bodkin, they had different tips. I can show you the other ones as well. After the tip, and it's very light, by the way, the tip, typically 3.5, 4 gram, 5 gram, 6 gram, but not too much heavier. So a lot lighter than you think. So it occurred to me the Ottomans saved a lot of weight where they could in everything, basically, not just arrows, also bows and horse equipment. In everything, they saved a lot of weight, maybe strategically. That was important. After the tip, you have washers. These could be bone, ivory, leather, brass, etc. And the reason for that is to the weight distribution. Okay, so it distributes the weight on impact better.
Yes.
On the wood. Otherwise, the wood might split.
Because it works as like an absorption layer or a buffer zone between the book and the shaft.
Also, there's a tongue here.
Yes.
I'll put maybe here, and the base of the tongue may not be clean. So it may not be exactly like 90 degrees, and then there might be some stuff there. Extra, and that will split the arrow open like this. So by adding a washer, you make it exactly clean and 90 degrees and
nice and straight. Where do you get your bodkins from?
Good question. The guy who made my swords, my Kulich, also made this, but it's hard. They're hard to get basically because English longbow, warbow, arrow, smith, they don't. It's not fine enough. Like they make stuff. They use the English stuff, and it's hard to get basically. So one of the guys is Michal Sodia actually from Czech.
Oh, okay.
He makes good ones. There's a couple of other ones as well, but it's very fine work.
Yes, definitely.
English arrows, for example,
looks very clean. Precise.
It starts at about Ottoman 5.5 millimeters typically. and then it tapers up until about maybe 9 millimeters, so 8 millimeters, 8.5, 9 millimeters typically, and then it tapers down again to maybe 6 or 7 millimeters here. So here it's very thin again, and then the knock, it's tapered. The fletching, the quill is removed. The knock could be many types. This is self knock, and this is the most common type, and it still holds, by the way. So people think, you know, you need to find something, but no.
Right.
If you do it well, I can shoot 80, 90, 100 pounds, and you see it's still intact. So no problem there.
And the knock, as you get to the end, it actually becomes like bulbous, like it has a bit of a round shape.
A bit bulbous, but not too much.
And
it doesn't open very much like a V shape. So I can show you a couple more. Here's another shape.
Awesome.
It's more for hunting and war.
What's written on there? There's something written on there.
Oh, it's actually my name in Ottoman Turkish. Well spotted. Michal Soja made this, and he knew how to write.
Awesome, beautiful, very nice.
Here you see another type where there's sinew and then hide glue or fish glue wrapped around. So this is another type. I'm not sure if you can see it properly here, maybe. And on top of that, they may have wrapped around bark, cherry bark, or leather, very thin leather to protect the sinew.
The cherry bark is good for, it's like waterproof, right?
Exactly. So it protects the sinew and also the glue.
Excellent, right.
So the glue will dissolve in water, basically.
Right.
So I can show you. So this is Bashpare Gez. So this is fake ivory, basically. The real ones might have been ivory for important people. So this is another type. And the way it fits, actually, you build something like this and put the knock on top. So basically like that. And I can show you Tatar arrows. So recently I got into Tatar archery as well, and it's quite complex and confusing because the Turks did Tatar archery as well. The Ottoman Turks.
That's one question that I wanted to ask you. What's the difference between? I think you might have it on your list as well. You know, Ottoman and Tatar, and then you have like the Crimean Tatar bow, but it looks very similar to the Turkish bow. You know, what are the? I don't know if the differences are very subtle or. What are the differences?
The Crimeans are basically, or were basically, the partners of the Ottomans, and the grandsons of the Golden Horde, if you want. So basically, they were Turkic Mongol people, and they had a different kind of archery. So their bows were longer, draw weights were longer, arrows were heavier. So I have one here, which I tried to replicate according to specs. As best as possible. So here you have a typical Tatar broadhead, but I don't know how to call them. So it's if you look just at the tip so much, it's a bodkin, right? For piercing armor, and then it becomes a broadhead. So it's genius actually. So it's a broadhead, and why broadhead? So the person or an animal bleeds more. So that horse, let's say, will drop earlier if you use a broadhead instead of a bodkin. So broadheads also have the sense, but also you need to pierce armor. So they have this hybrid.
It's 2 in 1.
It's 2 in 1 basically.
Amazing.
Exactly. So same construction, but it may start even smaller here, 5 millimeters Tatar arrows, and then it becomes a bit thicker, like 9 millimeters, 10 millimeters, and then it tapers down again, and the fletching is far bigger. And knock is also totally different design. It's much bigger.
Quite big.
Much bigger now.
I noticed that the Fletchers they reach all the way to the knock. You know, nowadays I guess modern arrows we leave like an inch or so, but these ones go all the way back.
Exactly, it would stabilize better. So in modern competition, we should mostly like 5 meters Korean and maybe 4 to 5 meters for Hungarian. But you know, earlier they shot maybe at first sight maybe 200 meters.
Wow.
The first arrows maybe. We don't know. We don't know. But everything points to that. You know, so that the arrow stabilizes better. It also has advantages on close distances. So it basically will stabilize quicker.
Yeah.
Length and weight. So that's one thing which puzzled me a lot. And maybe one thing I can share. We can share it by screen, or I can talk about it. So I looked at a lot of catalogs and could also look at certain arrows myself. I compiled a list of arrow length and arrow weights. Okay, and I put it in a graph in like X and Y. And then I just plotted them there. I don't know. Can we share?
So what? Yeah, I'm going to make you host, and then you will have the option at the bottom of your screen. It will say share screen.
I see it now.
Yeah, and then you can choose whatever page you have open. So you're in charge now.
Okay.
There we go.
Do you see it?
I see it, yes. Okay.
Okay. So this is a chart, and I'm updating when I find new arrows. And a disclaimer, by the way. So, you know, disclaimer is back then, you know, an army at any time on the Ottomans might have had like 100,000 riders, 100,000 people.
Sure.
Okay. And imagine if everybody had like 24 arrows, how many arrows? And just from a data set, it might not be correct to deduct something from this. So it's very limited data set. That's sure. What I want to say.
Yeah.
But already you see a pattern here. So on one side you see the arrow length, and then on the bottom you see arrow weight.
Yeah.
And then I just plotted them, and the red dots are Ottoman arrows, and the green dots are Tatar arrows.
Yes.
And typically you would see for Ottoman arrows 70, 72 centimeter arrow length. And then arrow weight might be ranging from 20 to 25 basically. So, but typically, you know, again, 23, 24, 25. So
this is grams?
And then grams, exactly. Sorry, grams. And Tatar arrows, they're much longer. So typically around 80, 85 centimeters. And the weight is typically from 35 to 40 grams.
And I have to say, Tatar arrows are longer because the bows were longer as well, right? They have longer limbs.
Exactly. So it's halfway to Manchu. Like Manchu is more extreme, but this is kind of halfway.
Yes.
So the arrows are, you know, a bit heavier. I have to say there is hybrids as well, just to make things really complicated. So things like, where is it? Things like this one actually. So in between, there's some as well, and it's hard to say, is it Ottoman, is it Tatar, or whatever. And the other question is, you know, what do I recreate? Ottoman archery, because I'm bigger than my father, and I'm bigger than people back 500 years ago. So can I, like the $1 million question, can I even recreate Ottoman archery, or am I already too big for it? So that's another thing to discuss on the time. So because it's interesting
you say that you're bigger than the people before, because I kind of always thought that over time mankind is actually shrinking in a way. You know, we do have certain cultures where people are like really big. For example, you find in China, for example, certain types of people, or in Africa, they're really, really tall. Okay. but that's quite limited to a particular area or a particular tribe, for example. But when we look back in time, you know, I've kind of read about people, you know, just like their hand span, for example, their foot size, their height, etc., was much taller than what we are today. I don't know what you think about that.
I don't believe so. And Stephen Selby also said the similar thing in one of your interviews. And you can see from the equipment they left over. So Europeans were quite small, even not in Napoleonic times. Like if you go to the museums in Paris, you see people were much smaller. Same with Ottomans, and you see from the draw length as well. So you know, that's total 70 centimeters. You know, it comes before my chin even, so it's a hard time pulling it. Yeah, so that I wanted to show. You know, that's a challenge, what to do and how to recreate our arrows. But it's, you know, questions that might, you know, make others think, and you know, maybe
topic for discussion for sure.
Okay, I'll stop sharing that. And then the other more complicated question is here. Those arrows have a taper, and how do you make the taper? Okay, do you make the arrow just longer, or, you know, do you make the middle thicker? So and, you know, the spine has to be the same as well. So how do you make it? So a lot of questions.
Well, actually, to later today, I'm hoping to do an interview with a guy named Kasper from Poland. Maybe you know of him. I saw him on Instagram, and he makes tapered arrows. In fact, he's a young guy, but when I saw his arrows, they look quite nice. So I asked him just if we can see how he makes them and what is his process. So hopefully, I will learn a little bit more. About that.
I want to show this one as well. It's a target or puta arrow. So tip is very light, maybe if I remember right, 1.5 or maybe 2 gram. Very thin here. It goes thicker and then goes thinner again. And it's about, I think, 22 gram. And it's a prototype. And with this, recreate carbon arrow speeds, basically. So, and it's still stiff enough. For my bows, so it is possible. You just need to experiment and put some effort in rather than using carbon arrows.
Now, in terms of arrow material, bamboo was not really available for the Turks or the Ottomans, so they don't really have much experience with that. But in the Far East, in comparison, that was their standard material for arrows. What experience do you have with different types of woods and then bamboo, and which do you kind of prefer?
Bamboo was not available to the Ottoman Turks, but we do see some bamboo examples. They're probably imported from India. Like there's a text saying, you know, they were imported from India, but they were very expensive, and at some point they didn't anymore. Pine, the main one is pine. For Tatar arrows, it might have been poplar as well, but main one is pine. And
do you think
get very high spined ones? So the highest spine possible, which is usually 80 pounds spine. I get that, but the weight is very important here as well. So length, weight, spine, but weight is more important actually than spine, because spine they're very similar. And and the main challenge is not to, you know, everybody can make one arrow, but the art is about making a set of 24,
right?
Which are what's the word?
Uniform.
Uniform, exactly, uniform.
Yeah.
So that's the real challenge.
Sure.
To replicate.
Do you think, it's probably a difficult question, we don't know the answer, but do you think if bamboo was available to the Turks, to the Ottomans, that they would have used that over other woods because of the fact that it's very light, very strong, has different properties?
Ask the Ottomans.
I'm asking their grandson. It's a tough one. I know. But the reason I'm asking is because, we know that the Ottomans were always looking to develop their archery skill and develop their bow shape and everything, their whole technology, so that they can improve and improve. And I guess it's just my view is that I think if they were able to learn a new technology of a new material that would excel them in archery, in shooting, in flight archery, whatever it might be, that they would embrace that, whether it, regardless of where the material is from, east or west, if they see a technique that will benefit them and develop and push it further, they would maybe, embrace that. I don't know.
They might have. They improved a lot as well. And the real improvement is not in the wood, but it's in the technology. So they adapted firearms. So that's the main improvement.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah. They're not just going to stick with the bow for the sake of the bow, because at one point the bow became redundant, when firepower came. So they said, look, this is the new technology. We embrace that and we push forward with that.
Exactly. Just one last thing maybe around arrows. A Turkish arrow might be like this. You can build a better one, but this year it's not a Turkish arrow. It's actually one from Monos, Laszlo Monos, Hungary, 2007. It's a souvenir. People painted very nicely in Ottoman Turkish motifs, and then it becomes a Turkish arrow, but it's not actually. So all those things that I told you, like, they make an Ottoman arrow, Turkish arrow, or an Asian arrow in general. So just FYI, I also do want to show you an English arrow, or two English arrows in comparison.
Yeah. Would all of the Turkish Ottoman arrows, would all of them be barreled, or would they also have straight shafts?
I have never seen one which had straight shafts. They're all barreled.
Wow, interesting.
And the barreling is standard as well, uniform. So very high craftsmanship.
Yeah, very, very high craftsmanship for sure. Yeah.
So just in comparison, how thin the Ottoman one is, and the English ones next to each other.
Wow.
So also in arrow length.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's like you have two broomsticks and a small stick.
Yeah, I mean, it also pierces armor. I want to emphasize this. So people say, light bows, light arrows, they can shoot far and blah, blah. But these, or the Tatar ones, or the hybrid arrows, they pierce arrow. So one text says, a janissary shot a marble, which was like three fingers thick, and he pierced it through the wall even. So that's one thing. There is, I think, was it one of the sultans, Yavuz Selim or Kanuni, I don't remember, like he pierced 3 wild boars with an arrow, like 3 wild boars. And wild boars, everybody who's a hunter knows, like they have thick bones.
Yeah.
So he pierced 3.
Wow.
There's a miniature of, I think it was Kanuni Sultan Süleyman, shooting a knight while on horseback. It's a famous one, you probably know. So the Hungarian knight, poor guy, like he drops backwards, but he was in armor. He was in armor of that time. So, it probably wasn't bad armor.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so this pierces armor as well, just to let people
know. Yeah, excellent. Okay. Are you able, can you just make me the host again if you can, just so that I can...
Sorry.
That's all right. So you'll see on my screen, there's 3 little dots. On my image, 3 dots.
Where do you see it? I don't see it.
It should. So on my actual video, where you see my face, in the corner should be 3 dots. There we go. Thank you. All right.
Host again.
All right.
So, okay. Next topic, the horse.
The horses, yes.
And I want to, time is pressing a bit as well. So horse quickly.
Yeah.
You know, I rode for a long time. Basically, I started at university when it was cheap, and I did horse archery a lot in Turkey, in Istanbul, at various competitions. One thing which enlightened me maybe the most in my life was when I started polocross in Ireland. So first I wanted to create horse archery here and start horse archery in Ireland once I moved, but first I couldn't. Then I said, okay, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, and polocross was big here, so the guys are really, really good globally. So I joined a club which is very close by here, polocross, and it's a bit slightly different than polo. So you have you know, a racket with a net instead of a mallet, a polo mallet. You play 3 people, but you still have goals and everything else is kind of the same. So that's maybe one experience I bring into the horse archery world, and which is maybe unique. And you know, I can talk about this experience in Mamluk or other treatises. It says how important it is to play polo, because you get skills for war, basically, for the horse and for yourself.
Sure.
So in competitions today, there is no horsemanship really, unfortunately. You just go straight. No horsemanship for you, but also no horsemanship for the skill horse. For the horse. Yeah. The horse basically switches off the brain, okay, and just goes straight. Even like the Polish tracks are a good step in the right direction, but even there the horse kind of knows, okay, and if it went a couple of times, it kind of memorizes. Polo or polocross is basically chess, and you're playing chess with the horse. The horse thinks with you, okay, so that's important.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to your last interview with
Michael Oates. Mike. Yes.
Michael, exactly. So he said the herd stuff, and there's lots of questions on how they do it in the back. So this is actually like where my light bulb will go on. And
he was talking about synchrony, synchrony of the horses.
Exactly.
They all move together.
That a lot with polo. Exactly. So you learn not to push others, not to touch other horses. You learn to ride in synchrony with your teammates forward. You also learn on command to touch other horses and push other horses, a bit like buzkashi. So polocross is a bit more rougher than polo. So you can push quite a lot, and you know, and basically you learn the qualities for war on the battlefield. Like the horse's mouth is very good then.
Yeah.
You can stop, you can turn immediately, you can go very fast, you can do lots of things.
Yeah.
You can position your horse in a way, for example, behind your enemy, so that, you know, you can do better sword, you know, on a dead spot.
Right.
All those things. And, you know, it develops the muscle in a different way as well. So horseback, modern archery trick, you just go straight and the muscles are that way as well. But with this, you know, because you turn and do lots of things, other muscles develop for the horse and for you as well, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
a lot more realistic.
And you also, more realistic, and also you learn to use the horse as a platform. So you just don't sit in the middle, but you stretch to get the ball. You know, you go under the horse to get the ball. You know, you're on a tippy toes to get the ball very high, and all those things. So you use the horse basically like a ship or like a platform.
Interesting. Yeah.
To have wider reach as well, and that's good for archery and sword and other things as well. Definitely. So that's important. I learned a lot of side skills as well, like you know, the training, the horsemanship that goes into it, the horse diet even. So those guys, again, like us, the horse had high protein feed, etc. So all those things I learned, which is plus for myself. So anybody can do it. Please do it. It adds a lot to the understanding of how the old guys
Would you say that you know, polo cross or lacrosse or horses are best suited for horse archery today because they're so desensitized and they're a lot smarter than just a normal
Good question.
horse? Or...
There's three questions. One question is, what horse is suitable for horse archery?
Right.
And then I can say any horse is, you know, suitable. You can ride on a pony, you can ride on a really tall horse, slow horse. It doesn't matter really. Then second question is, what horse is important to get high points in competitions today? That's a different question.
Right.
And I'm not an expert on that. There's people who can optimize the horses as well. You know, they choose slow horses on certain tracks, fast horses, etc. That's another thing as well. What I'm interested in, what horses were they actually using back then?
Right.
And A, and then B question, what horse resembles those horses most today?
Yeah.
And I tried to research a lot on that side as well. And you know, there's been DNA research as well. And I do think today it's the Akal Teke that resembles it most. The Turkmen horses from Iran. So again, unfortunately, most Turkish horses in Turkey were extinct, but the horses live on in other countries.
Have you seen the horses that Ali is breeding in Iran?
I've seen them, yeah, but I haven't been there, but I see them from videos and stuff. So yeah, so horse breeding and horses in Iran is generally really great, and they still have historic breeds, which we don't really have except for the Arab. Couple of other breeds we have, but they're not really for war. Anyway, yeah, I do think also the English thoroughbred is maybe the closest one to the Turkish horse. And there was recent DNA research which proves it actually. So the majority of the English thoroughbred comes from the Turk and not from the Arab. So also Arab, but the majority of the genes come actually from the Turkish breed, which is important to know. But the English thoroughbred became taller in the last 300 years. Okay, so the original Turk was probably a bit smaller. So I would say ideal was or is 15 hands 2, around that. So what I can say from my own experience is if the horse is taller than 15 hand 2, it becomes faster on the straight, but it becomes slower turning. Okay, and if the horse is smaller than 15 hands, it becomes better at turning, but it becomes slower at straight line. So the sweet spot maybe is 15 hands 2. So there you have this top speed at straight, but you also have the agility to move. And yeah, so for me, basically, an English thoroughbred, polo pony is the perfect war horse, and the closest thing to what they used back then.
Interesting. That's very good. Okay, next. I'm also sensitive of your time as well. I don't want to take too much of your time, but
riding style, we said already, Eastern versus Western. I can show you some good books actually. So about horses, those people who can read Turkish, this is a good book. It says about Turkish horses, horsemanship, etc. And it says already in the early 19th century, we were already importing horses from Hungary, unfortunately. So a lot of things kind of seem to have ended early 19th century.
So what happened to all of those? What happened to all those horse breeds and horses that were in Turkey? I mean, they let them go, they killed them off, or what?
As cannon fodder, basically. We used them up as cannon fodder, unfortunately.
What a shame.
So we did so many, like the empire was so big, we had battles on every front, and you know, it was all a lot of cavalry based, and we used them up, unfortunately. So I would assume we used mainly Turkish breeds up until 17th century, and from that time on, when the infrastructure got better, we used more and more Arab steeds. Arabs were always used, but you know, it was more and more towards the end of the empire, I would say. One book I want to recommend is Noble Brutes: How Eastern Horses Transformed English Culture. And there it showed basically how European horsemanship was before. It wasn't that good as now. So just FYI, and how the English and the Europeans adapted basically, for example, shorter stirrups or the Turkish breed, and then they branded it as English thoroughbred then, and a lot of other behaviors and stuff, horse tech, etc. So this is a good book on that.
Excellent.
Exactly. Okay, horse, other weapons, I can tell you a bit about, you know, the swords. I can show you a bit.
Please, yeah.
And again, my main, like, there was never really a pure horse archer without any other weapons. So a horse archer had always other weapons as well. Because what will you do after 24 arrows?
Exactly.
So I can show you this as an example. Okay, so this is historically correct, also in the period. It's about Bayezid time, a bit later maybe, Yavuz Sultan Selim. So early 1500s, early 16th century. So this is how it looks like, the outer, the kun. And then you have, let me show you. So kabza is the same as the grip, and it's that particular period actually. So just fun fact: if you go to Topkapi Museum and look at the Prophet's swords and his companions, peace be upon him, you see the same. Why? Because Sultan Yavuz Selim conquered that area, and the swords were probably just the blade, and he remade everything. So you can see the grip is the same in for the Prophet's.
Interesting. And compared to like the English broadsword, the grip is very straight, right? But here it has a slight bend to give you more grip, I think.
Exactly. There's a leverage effect here that you can use. Okay, so then balchak, kabza balchak is the crossguard, then namlu. And you have called oluk here. It's, you know, what do you call it in English again? So it's not for blood, by the way. It's just to reduce weight.
Yes. So it's a slight indent in the blade.
Exactly.
Right.
You have this is the Yalman section, and it's a false. It's an edge on this side as well. And then you have something called mahmuz. It's like a hammer here, so it just adds a bit of weight as well.
I see.
And overall, and by the way, this is an exact replica of Sultan Süleyman's sword, which is in the military museum. So the swordsmith, he went into the museum and measured to the micrometer.
Amazing.
So what's the difference? Basically, if you hold it like this, the tip will fall down. So the tip is heavy, okay? And compared to European blades. Okay, European blades, you have pretty good, can control the tip very well, but you know, this is the opposite. So it has really less weight here.
So the weight, the advantage it's weighted at the front.
Exactly. So the advantage is you can block much faster than European blade because there's no weight here. I'm much faster here. And the other thing is, you know, when you cut cheese, hard cheese, what you do basically is you put your thumb on the knife and then press on the other side as well. So that's the same effect basically. So that's why this type of blade is a really good cutter.
Right. So this can slice and it can stab also.
It can stab as well, obviously. So it's good to stab as well. Early Ottoman sabers were pretty much straight, coming out of Central Asia. They were very straight, but still technically saber. And then later, you know, and they still had to cut armor with it as well. But once firearms developed, the armor disappeared because it had a shrapnel effect. So you couldn't wear armor anymore because you were dead then. The importance of sabers disappeared as well. So then you had more curved sabers, which were just to cut swiftly. Yeah, so this is more an early type. Basically.
And where was this one made?
In Turkey.
Ah, okay.
Kayahan Horoz is the maker. Yeah,
he's a swordsmith by trade.
Exactly.
Excellent. Wow.
So yeah, again, like you know, trying to do everything what the Sipahi did, and in the old texts, a Sipahi was basically like a Swiss army knife. So based on the situation, you brought out the bow. Based on the situation, you put the bow back and then brought out the sword, and then put the sword back. So there's not like one battle where you use one thing and then just throw it away.
Sure.
You put it back into the sheath as well. So like, and it's like rock, paper, scissors. There is not something like, okay, one weapon is the ultimate weapon. It's based on the situation. So you need to be able to put it back. What
about lance and spear? Did they have any skill with that?
They did, in fact. Yeah, you see it a lot in miniatures. I didn't try much. Just last year with the Polish guys, I tried a bit of spear. So spear, bow, and sword in combination. It gets quite complicated, actually. So,
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's great fun, and I want to evolve in that area as well. So how they did it, and not just horse archery. So excellent. This was the sword.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. That was great.
Otherwise,
one other question. You know, you have with the kalkan. I saw in one of the videos with Ali. Traditionally, they have it on their back as a protection from getting shot from behind as well. Is this correct?
Yeah. You can do that.
Yeah. So and there's many different ways you can hold the kalkan.
Exactly.
On the back, on the front, and the side, etc.
Exactly. So this is the technology, if you want, behind it. So
yeah,
all those straps. So you could hold it in different ways, but I found one way to hold it, or one main way, is basically to get it around and then have your hands not inside but outside. So because in old text it says, shoot an arrow and then put the kalkan on your other side, and then you need to move quickly. So that way you can do it quickly, by the way.
Yes.
This way. And otherwise you can also have it like a backpack. So that's also possible. Interesting. And yeah. Otherwise, what else was there? There's lots of more things like jirit, mace, spear, kemet, even a lasso.
Yeah.
Which they used in Central Asia. So we can all try to understand better. The fourth pillar, if you want, is the warrior culture.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to understand that part as well. And one reoccurring theme is the seeking of beauty. So in forms of art, poems, music, flowers, etc. So it's a bit again like in the movie Last Samurai, where the guy goes into the samurai's home and he sees lovely garden, beautiful trees with flowers, etc. So that's something as well.
What can you say about the element of I guess religious aspect or spirituality of the Sipahi? Would any of them be linked to like a tekke or something like that, or some spiritual lineage or sheikh or something like
that? Possibly. There was a lot going on in the Ottoman Empire. So now it's more homogeneous, but back in the Ottoman Empire, there were lots of splinter groups and lots of groups in general and stuff.
Yes.
So Bektashi was for sure one thing, which doesn't exist in the same form anymore. Like it was
because many of the sultans themselves had spiritual guide or spiritual teacher. and I'm sure this would filter down to the ranks of the soldiers. No,
could be, yeah, could be. I'm not an expert on this.
No, maybe it's just another aspect of, like you say, you're talking about warrior culture. Culture will also include like their whole, the way they live, their the way of life, their daily practices,
exactly.
Prayers or gatherings that they have, etc., etc. So it could be another aspect to look into.
The way I practice it, maybe I can give you a couple of examples. So, Nejmuddin Okyay, he was one of the last warriors or archers trying to survive. He had like more than 20 species of roses in his garden. I think it was Üsküdar in Istanbul. So I also have lots of roses. I do lots of stuff in the garden. I've more than 30 species of roses. So that's kind of a good balance as well, in addition to what I do here.
Yeah. So horticulture, I guess people would think, well, what does being a gardener have to do with being a warrior? But it actually helps you to balance out from being very rugged and brutish. On the other side, you can be quite soft and cultured. And as we know, Nejmuddin Okyay also was a calligrapher as well.
Exactly. I slightly disagree. Like, it was a topic in the past interviews as well. I don't think it's like yin and yang, and on one side they're like Jekyll, and then the other side they're like Hyde. No, right. I think it's, even on the battlefield, it's beauty. The techniques. Even if you behead somebody, it could be like a beauty in it, like back in the days.
Sure.
So the search for beauty is on both sides, on the warrior side and also on the.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that point as well. Yeah, but I think to become I guess a complete warrior, you have to be cultured also in some of the arts as well.
Exactly.
And Nejmuddin Okyay, I think, was probably the best example we had of that in recent times. The number of crafts and skills and knowledges he had, he was not just limited to just archery or just calligraphy. It was so many different things. Such a skilled person.
Exactly.
So, alhamdulillah.
One thing, maybe last thing about the warrior culture. I read a lot, and not arch related as well. So sometimes you can get also good information about old things, how they were in non-archery related context.
Yeah.
And it seems like, because I think with Mike, there was discussion about competition culture now and how it was back then. Those guys were pretty much show off.
Right.
So it was all about showing off and making PR and an image about yourself and being noticed in the army as well. Imagine there's an army of 100,000.
Yeah.
And there's a general, and you want to show yourself basically. So nobody, do you think in that environment people would choose a slow horse so that they could point higher?
Exactly.
I just want to give you an example. So there were people, and then just to show the skills, they would play Jirit, and Jirit is I think you played it as well. Like, it's like a javelin game on horseback, like an ancient game.
Yeah.
And like a group of people, they were so show off. They went and found wild horses, feral horses. They put their tech on.
Yeah.
And then they did Jirit.
Right.
And they were playing stuff on those horses, on those wild horses who have never been ridden.
Wow.
Just to show how,
the horsemanship.
So there's no making it easier in those times, but making it more difficult.
More harder, yeah.
Just to show your skill.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
but I mean, for them, their culture was, the horse was very much part of their culture, right? They grew up around horses.
Exactly.
Nowadays, we are so, well, I myself at least, we are so divorced from being around horses too much and living with them and things like that. I think people like Ali is probably doing one of the best things to revive that horse and rider culture, where he's not on any particular track. He's just out in the mountains. It's open, and the horse is used to kind of thinking for itself rather than saying, right, go down a particular track. You know, there is no set track there for them. They just set up targets anywhere in the mountains and they go and ride. And that, again, Michael's saying that is a lot more representative of authentic horse archery in his view.
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, excellent. Gökmen, do you have any, obviously post-COVID, do you have any plans for competitions or traveling anywhere for archery or doing anything?
I would love to, yeah, once this is over. I want to meet you guys. Like,
Sure,
I
definitely. We're definitely going to organize something. Either we're going to come and see you or we organize something over here, but we definitely need to meet up again. It's been too long and the kids are all getting very big. But I appreciate your time, Gökmen. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have kept really nagging you for this. I think people who see this, you know, they don't know how long I was trying to get Gökmen. But, you know, for the viewers who are watching, Gökmen didn't really think he was, you know, up there with a lot of the other big names I had on my list of interviews. And that's fine. Everyone sees themselves in a different light. But from the time I've known Gökmen and the research he's done, and not only that, but what others have said to me about him, you know, for me, I really thought that he should be up there with these people, and all of the research that you've done and the hard work and the effort you've put in, we are all benefiting from that. So for that, you know, at least I would like to say thank you for your effort, and any other work that you will do in the future to contribute to the archery community will be very, very appreciated.
Pleasure is on my side, Jihad. Thank you very much.
Excellent, no problem. Okay, so I hope to see you soon. Love to the family, and we'll stay in touch, and hopefully we cross paths very soon.
Inshallah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gökmen.
Bye.
See you. All right, salam.